Christmas today is great. But if you grew up in the 60s, 70s, or even 80s, you know it was different. They were these little traditions that just don't even exist anymore. Today I'm going to take you back to the Christmases we grew up with. And I guarantee you're going to recognize some of these traditions. Welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of my Christmas series. It's going to be 4 parts in all, ending right at Christmas time. Today we're going to talk about the traditions that have gone the way of a lot of other things. Do you remember putting heavy silver tinsel on your tree? You know, that stuff that really looked great with those old-fashioned Christmas bulbs shining off of it? I used to do it every year. And then my father or mother would redo it because I was like, yay, throw it on the tree. And that really didn't come out too good. But I mean, this was the stuff that you would find under your couch or your recliner in July, because this stuff somehow stuck around. And it was so staticky, you'd get shocked every time you walked within 10 feet of the tree. And then during the Christmas season, we had all these movies we wanted to see, which, by the way, is the subject of my next video. But it was appointment TV. You didn't have streaming. You didn't have all these channels to choose from. We had like 4 channels. And if you missed the Christmas special when it was aired, you weren't seeing it again until next year. Oh, and the Christmas catalogs. From Sears, JCPenney, Montgomery Ward. You would sit down with the Wish Book from Sears. You would go through page by page. You'd skip through the clothes and find the toys and the sports stuff. Circle, circle. That don't happen no more. Nobody sends out those catalogs anymore. Hell, Sears is barely even in business anymore. And the handwritten Christmas cards. What my mom used to do, and my dad, is put up string across one wall of our living room, and those cards would get hung on that string. Now, you send one group email, and you've pretty much covered your entire Christmas list. But it was cool getting those things in the mail. And a lot of times you'd get the same Christmas card from Aunt B that you got from Uncle J, because they both bought the same assortment. Maybe, quite possibly, the most frustrating thing that was still a really fun tradition. Stringing popcorn. Now, I don't know who came up with this idea, and if you really look at it, it's kind of dopey, but you'd sit there with a needle and thread and going through kernel after kernel after kernel of popcorn while you were eating hands full of it and feeding some to your dog, and half the kernels were breaking when you put the needle through it. And finally, you'd get a string long enough to put up on the Christmas tree. But it was cool. It was fun. Now, I did that a few years back when I was living in Pennsylvania, but I strung that popcorn on an outside tree for the birds and at times deer to come munch on. So there you go. You might be able to still keep that tradition alive in your house. Just do it differently. How many of you out there would go to your parents and say, "Are we gonna go see the lights?" You'd hop in their car, maybe with a cup of hot chocolate, drive around the neighborhood. And your parents always knew where the best displays were, and just marvel in the lights. It took a lot of work for these people to do that. It was none of these synchronized LED displays that you see today. It was people stringing lights and probably checking them from last year, because if one went out, they all went out. It was magical. Sometimes you'd have people in the neighborhoods playing Christmas music outside, sometimes not, but it wasn't about all that flashiness. It was more about the magic of Christmas. Now, here's one that I can personally very, very, very much relate to. The whole mall Santa experience. Now, you all know as well as I do, malls have pretty much gone the way of horse and buggies, Pony Express. But when I was playing Santa for those years at the malls on Long Island, it made my Christmas more magical. And I could tell by the looks on the faces of the children that were coming to see me that it was making it more magical for them too. Which kind of leads into another tradition that's kind of gone the way of the Pony Express. Really starting the Christmas season on the day after Thanksgiving. When I worked in the malls as Santa, we used to open our display on the Friday after Thanksgiving, 8 a.m. And without fail, I was always the one opening. And again, without fail, I would not get relieved. And I'd be there from 8 in the morning until 9 at night. But I didn't even mind. It was the real start of the Christmas season. Now, the day after Halloween, everybody's got their Christmas stuff out in the stores, and people are talking about, well, spooky season's over, it's time for Christmas. And as you know from my last video, Thanksgiving needs to get re-acknowledged. And what about the smell? Yeah, the smell of the toys on Christmas morning. They had that plastic smell to them, that sometimes the electronics, which weren't that often, but they had a certain smell to them. And that's not the case anymore. Now everything smells like cardboard. Look, Christmas back then wasn't perfect. Hell, we were probably getting lead poisoning from the tinsel, but it was special. And I think a lot of that goes to compressing the season. The day after Thanksgiving, till whenever. These little traditions. Some were messy, some were silly, but they made the season special. And even though the world has changed, hell, in ways I don't even want to talk about, these memories of these traditions stick with you. So now I want to hear from you. What's a Christmas tradition you miss? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if you like this content, then hit the like button. It really helps the channel out. And subscribe. I'll see you next week. Until then, I'm Felix, and these are the stories of my life.
Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.